What are the symptoms of asbestos exposure? The person will normally present with shortness of breath, chronic cough, chest pain. The lung function test will be down. It's related to usually work, what they've done in the past with their work. You find it a lot in people who've worked in shipyards or factories, railroads and construction and automobile factories, with building components, materials. It also could be that is known as asbestosis. It's a non-cancerous disorder. It's not a pleasant disorder. It causes a lot of breathing problems. It can lead to further damage of the lung tissue. It can also lead to heart failure because of the lung functions being down. So there are other related diagnoses that can come from this. But shortness of breath and chronic cough and chest pain are some of the most prevalent things that you will notice, symptoms that you will notice with asbestosis.
So asbestos was used very widely in all public and commercial buildings, including schools, from the 1950s until the 1990s in this country for fireproofing and insulation. It's thought that any school built before 2000 could contain some asbestos within the school buildings, particularly system-built schools in the 1960s and 70s that some people know as prefab buildings as well, and unfortunately asbestos is a carcinogenic material and can cause mesothelioma, which is a fatal cancer. And because there's no known safe exposure level, it is extremely dangerous to be around asbestos if it's removed or disturbed or in an unsafe condition. And people think that because children are very little and very young and their lungs are still developing, and that there's this long latency period between breathing in the asbestos and developing an asbestos-related condition, that children could be particularly susceptible to breathing in asbestos. And that's what makes the asbestos in schools issue so important for everybody, because most of us have all been to school and a lot of us have children who are in school at the moment, and we want to make sure that they're properly protected and that asbestos is properly managed. It's thought that maybe 70 to 75% of schools could contain asbestos in this country, and part of the reason why some campaigners think it's still there is cost, because the cost of removing asbestos properly and safely with approved contractors is incredibly expensive, and would cost the country and the government many millions of pounds. The official Department of Education and Health and Safety executive advice is that anyone who runs or manages a school, be it a local authority, or head teacher or group of trustees, should make sure that they do a proper review of the asbestos in their building, that they risk assess it, that if it's safe and in good condition, that they manage and contain it and let others know it exists, and that if it's unsafe, they should get specialist contractors to review, have a look at it and remove it if necessary, and that certainly if any building or renovation works are going on in that school, then asbestos should be considered and specialist contractors should be used to do that renovation work and make sure that there's no contamination in the school from any asbestos which could be removed or disturbed.
Now, mesothelioma is a cancer that generally starts in the lungs and is caused by contact with asbestos. It's a familiar problem in Scotland, where generations of men worked in the shipyards, for example, and there are compensation schemes for them. But what about those who are exposed to the asbestos through contact with their relatives? Their access to compensation is considerably less. Trish Doig explains how she contracted the illness.
I think I came into contact with asbestos when I stayed with my aunt and uncle in the 60s, because my uncle worked for the Dundee Boiler Covering Company, and they worked with asbestos all the time. And I think that the fibres came home in his clothes. He would give me a lift to work in his little van, which was full of asbestos, and I think that was where my contact came from. I was shocked. I'd never heard of mesothelioma. I mean, who had? So when they told me I had this strange disease, and they couldn't really give me any prognosis because they didn't know anything about it.
Well, let's speak to Phyllis Craig, who's a Senior Welfare Rights Officer with Clydesdale Action on Asbestos. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
How many people do you think are in Trish Doig's position? How many people contracted it through other relatives, do you think?
I think secondary exposure is certainly a lot less than what it is for the people who had direct exposure, but it shouldn't mean that they are any less of a person who should be compensated for their condition.
And tell us then how the compensation works at the moment then.
Well, what would happen is that someone who has indirect exposure, either environmentally or domestic exposure, can apply to a scheme. The government had a scheme in 2008, and that would give a portion of what you would receive in civil damages. But remember, this is only for mesothelioma, so a lot of people who have asbestos-related lung cancer lose out altogether because they receive no compensation.
So there's a big difference between those affected directly who have mesothelioma and those who are secondary, and then there's another big difference between those who have other asbestos-related cancers. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, that's correct, because if we're talking about government scheme, the government scheme is open up to people who have mesothelioma, who have indirect exposure, but it's not opened up to people who have asbestos-related lung cancer. And you've also got civil damages, and the 2012 scheme, which is run by the insurers, is open for people who cannot pursue civil damages, but they must have had direct exposure. So that's not open to people who have indirect exposure, but it's also not open to people who have died of an asbestos condition like asbestos-related lung cancer.
In many cases, it must be quite difficult to prove that you were in direct contact with asbestos in certain areas. Is it because it might have happened sort of 50, 60 years ago, and you're saying, well, I'm sure it happened when I worked in the shipyards?
I think that's right. I think the latency period has a lot to do with it. But people do remember, like the lady says, she knew that her uncle had been working with asbestos. They just didn't know the dangers of it at that time. And I think that's happened to an awful lot more people than we actually realise.
So what would you like to see happen? Because we're talking about secondary mesothelioma this morning, but it's not necessarily that it would seem from what you're saying that you think needs looked at.
Well, I think that if the government are going to open up a scheme, the 2008 scheme should be open up to more than just mesothelioma. Mesothelioma most definitely should receive some sort of payment. But I think that if the insurance industry are putting money into a scheme, and that's the 2012 scheme, then it should be open up to women. These women should receive a full payment as if they were entitled to receive civil damages, but it should be opened up to everyone.
Phyllis Craig, this story, presumably because asbestos is no longer used, should run its course. If you open it up to other members of the family, that includes possibly children, it will be a long time before it runs its course, won't it?
But it's still running its course because asbestos is still in situ. So unless we have asbestos safely removed, then it's always going to cause a danger. One of the campaigns we have running just now is to have asbestos removed from our schools.
Well, Phyllis Craig, thank you very much indeed for joining us this morning. Senior Welfare Rights Officer with Clydesdale Action on Asbestos.
Hello again, you're watching UTV Live tonight. A North Belfast man who is dying from asbestosis has won a case in the High Court against his former employers. 71-year-old Arthur Rafferty, who used to be a docker, won an undisclosed sum of money and has vowed to continue his campaign to help others suffering from asbestosis. Aidan Kennedy reports.
Arthur Rafferty is a fighter. The former boxer is dying from asbestosis but refuses to be beaten down. Today, he won a High Court battle against his former employers to prove the impact of asbestos. Arthur started work in the docks in the 1950s, heaving bags of asbestos off ships. He was one of thousands of men working with the deadly cargo.
And no one ever told us about the dangers of this. We never got not as much as a paper mask. It was a dangerous job. We reported that to our union a couple of times about the dangers of it and the dust, but our union done absolutely nothing about it.
It was only 10 years ago that Arthur's past came back to haunt him when a doctor diagnosed him with asbestosis.
He's telling me now there's nothing we can do for you. Now that in itself knocked me out, because I was a professional boxer. I never drank, and I never smoked, and I always kept myself fit. And for a man to come up to you and say, there's nothing we can do for you.
After he was diagnosed, Arthur decided to sue his former employers, but had no idea of the difficult path that lay ahead. It was here at the Mater Hospital in North Belfast in 2002 that Mr. Rafferty was first diagnosed with asbestosis. In 2007, the hospital came back to him and said that he did not, in fact, have the killer disease, but would eventually develop it. As a result, a court decided to put his case for compensation against his employers on hold. Arthur said that at the time he could not understand how he could have been treated for asbestosis for 5 years and then be told he didn't have the disease. And so he decided to get a second opinion. He went to see a specialist doctor in Liverpool who concluded that he did indeed have the disease.
He's point blankly says, yes, you do have asbestosis, you do have bronchiectasis, and you also have pleural plaques. Yet these radiologists here in Belfast, 3 of them, one from the Mater, one from the City and one from the Royal, couldn't find any.
And so Arthur began his legal fight again. Today he won his case against his former employers in the High Court, receiving an undisclosed sum of money.
Even 2 barristers in the court that have been following my case, and I don't know them from Adam, they come up to me and shook my hands. He says that was a David and a Goliath.
Arthur says he's now planning to take a case against the doctors in the Belfast Trust he alleges are responsible for his misdiagnosis. But in the meantime, he says he'll continue his campaign to help others suffering from the disease.
I'm fighting on now 11 years, and I told them right from the word go that I'm in here for the full 15 rounds, and I think they know what I mean. I'm not going to win. I'm going nowhere.
Joining us from London is the DUP MP Nigel Dodds, who's been campaigning on Arthur's behalf for many years. Good news indeed for Mr. Rafferty after a long battle.
I'm absolutely delighted at the news today. I've known Arthur for many years. I've been fighting alongside him to get justice in his case, and I'm thrilled today that he has got to the position where he has, and it'll not stop Arthur from continuing to campaign on behalf of others, of course, but good news on his front.
And it's been a long, long campaign.
It has. I mean, I first met Arthur some 10 years ago, and we have been battling on his case, but also highlighting the case of other sufferers of asbestosis-related diseases, pleural plaques and so on. And there have been many turns, and we're not there yet, but we have made considerable progress, so it's good news on that front.
How many sufferers like Arthur Rafferty are there out there, do you think?
Well, it's hard to put a precise figure on it. I mean, we know certainly that there are dozens, but there could be hundreds more men, primarily men, who worked in the docks, in heavy engineering, and for whom no safety or health and safety precautions were taken at the time about asbestosis or dealing with it or the effects of it. And the various insurance companies have tried to put roadblocks in the way of those who have suffered. There have been all sorts of legal challenges. In the Assembly, I'm delighted when I was Finance Minister that we introduced plans to change the law, and that has now come to fruition to allow claims to proceed. But I believe it could affect hundreds of people and many of their families as well.
So should this then pave the way for other sufferers or their families to take action?
Well, I think it certainly sends a very strong signal that people who have cases or who think they may have been subjected or got this disease through their workplace, that they should go to their solicitor, go to their legal advisor, seek to see what kind of redress and compensation that they can get. And we have changed the law now in Northern Ireland so that for pleural plaque sufferers, for instance, people will now be able to take claims, whereas previously the House of Lords had barred that, and we changed the law in Northern Ireland to ensure that people could take their cases.
Because it does appear that this has been swept under the carpet.
Well, sadly, for many, many years, victims of asbestosis-related disease through the workplace were the forgotten sufferers. They were the victims in all of this, and for many years, until people like Arthur came along, they had no compensation, no recompense. I'm delighted that Arthur has fought. He was a boxer in his youth, and he's still continuing to fight today, and he's delivering a knockout blow, and we'll be there alongside him as we continue to fight for justice for this band of workers.
Nigel Dodds in London, thank you.
Thank you.
Well,
this is Arthur Rafferty. He is 70 years old and terminally ill from asbestos poisoning. For the past 36 years, Arthur has been trying to find the man who murdered his father.
My father in 1974 on the 15th of August was in a bar in North Belfast called the Hole in the Wall. Two dockers, one Martin Macon, told my father a story. Whatever they told him, it must have been good, because my father was not a stupid man. So he left his drink and walked out with them. He came past number 12. Two men were waiting in number 12, one with a loaded armalite rifle. They came out of the house. The fellow knew there was something wrong, and he ran. And they chased after the fellow, shot him 12 times, and the fellow lay here.
Both Arthur and his father were part of a dockers' union run by known members of the IRA. As Arthur began looking deeper into his father's murder, the connection became increasingly apparent.
My father was murdered because he spoke out against our union. Our union was run by Sinn Féin IRA, and all the top men in the top jobs of our union were all members of Sinn Féin IRA. And my father spoke out against them time and time again because he would take no nonsense from them, and they didn't like that. North Belfast in the 1974s was packed day and night with army and police. You couldn't have got walking whereas you were stopped and questioned. Yet these people had time to come to walk my father for 500 yards down into Newington Street and shoot my father at my father 12 times. Go into the house again, put the gun away, walk down the street past my father who was lying in the street bleeding to death, get into a taxi and get down to the New Lodge Road without meeting any police or army. That to me sounds funny. Number 12 was a safe house for the IRA. The police got information about a week or so after that about a rifle was in that house. Someone phoned in. The police raided that house, found the rifle, found a magazine, found ammo, found gloves, balaclava and a boiler suit. They all went missing. A brown envelope with 2 bullets in it was put through the mother's letterbox. A little note on it, this is for your 2 sons, get them out of the country. But I'm still here.
After over 30 years of asking questions and getting answers few and far between, in 2005, Arthur got a call from the most unlikely of sources, one-time IRA company commander, Brendan Hughes.
Brendan Hughes phoned me out of the blue. I never met the man in my life. He's told me he wanted to meet me, he read my story in the paper, and he wanted to speak about the father's murder. Well, I had two minds about going there because I was going right into the heart of the Lower Falls, which was run by these people. Plus, he lived in a big high-rise flats. There was only one door in and one door out, the same door. But I made my mind up to go after I'd been fighting this case for a long time. I went up and I spoke to the man. He shook hands with me, I explained who I was, he told me who he was, we went in, we had a cup of tea. And then he started to tell me, he told me exactly what happened, as I've told you. Well, I believe him, because after all, the boss of the IRA is on television day and daily saying he was never in the IRA. At least this man came out and told me the truth. And I believe he told me the truth because he knew he was dying, the man, and he wanted to ease his conscience.
The truth that Rafferty heard was that his father was shot by Freddie Scappaticci, the head of the IRA's punishment squad. In 2003, Scappaticci was revealed to be a high-level agent for British intelligence, solidifying Rafferty's claims of a cover-up. Since, Scappaticci has fled the country.
Scappaticci has signed an affidavit that his solicitor holds that if anything ever happens to him, he's to release that. Many a person he's put to death with the knowledge of the RUC. And if he fell, the whole of Stormont would fall. It's as simple as that. Well, the police and the HCT and the ombudsman and the other corrupt people up in Stormont may be hating this fellow Scappaticci in London. He's not too far away from me. And that if he wants to try and take out another Arthur Rafferty, let him come to me. Simple as that. I've lost my life in a way that it's a vicious circle. This corrupt union that tortured my father and helped to murder my father has also killed me. I'm dying. Same people. Yet these people, when I walk past them in the street, go the other side of the street. If they're driving past me in a car and they see me coming, their head shoots the other way. They don't want to talk to me. I told my father when he was down in the hospital, he was cut practically in two. The doctors in the hospital didn't. They told me that time I went in the first night and he would die that night. That man lasted for nearly.
So many years later?
1958, I got into the Doctors Union, and right from the word go, there was a cargo that came into the Belfast Stars called Asbestos. And asbestos was gold dust because it had to be used by the shipyard for making ships, for doing all the lagging of the ships. And we were the only port here in Belfast. There was either us or the Cross Channel, and the Cross Channel never touched it. We were the one that took it out all the time. And right from 1958 to 1984, I was working unloading asbestos. Thousands upon thousands of tons came out of the Belfast docks. And we had never, at any time, any protection at all. We were never even given as much as a paper mask. Now, my health, after I left the docks in 1984, I took sick a couple of times in 2001. I went to the Mater Hospital. The doctor there diagnosed me after six or seven tests, MRI scans. He diagnosed me with having asbestosis. I asked him what was that. I didn't even know. And he said to me, did you ever work with a commodity at the desk called asbestos? I said, of course we did for years. He said, and we was ever given any protection? Nothing, I said. Have we never given nothing? Or have we never told it was dangerous? He said, well, Arthur, you should have been told that because this stuff was well known and well documented all over the world as a dangerous commodity. Well, I explained to them that our union never told us, our employers never told us, and there was people at the dock called the factory inspectorate. They were employed by the government to look into dangerous cargoes. They never even told us.
The impact of that must have been great, particularly because you were a boxer, and I mean a sportsman through and through. You were a professional boxer at some stage in your career as well. I mean, it must have been a devastating blow to find out that you were suffering from the like of asbestosis.
Well, I walked into the hospital that morning in 2001 expecting the doctor to tell me about cramps or pains in my stomach or such and such, but I walked out after about 6 hours in the hospital. I went home. I couldn't believe what the doctor told me. His exact words to me was, Arthur, there's nothing we can do for you.
Nothing at all?
Nothing at all we can do for you, only help you along the way. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Like, after all, I was fit all my life, never drank, nor never smoked. As you said, I was a professional, amateur, unprofessional, all told about 254 fights. And they were told that there's nothing you can do. Just go home and prepare yourself, he says. And I attended the Mother Hospital right from that time, right, I'll go twice a year up for tests and blood tests and you name it, but never giving them the cure because there's no cure for the sickness. And that happened right up till 2007. I was to go to court for compensation. 2 months before I was to go to court, my solicitor phoned me up and said, Arthur, I want you to go and see another doctor in the city hospital, a fellow called Dr. Richard Shepherd and a Dr. John Lawson. Well, I says, what's the use of me going to see him, another doctor, when my own doctor here is calling himself an asbestos specialist, and he was supposed to be the top man in Northern Ireland, a fellow called Dr. Joe Kidney of the Mother Hospital. And I argued my point against it because I thought it was stupid me going to see another doctor when I'm already attending one for near 7 years. But I went over to see this man in the city hospital. About 4:30 at night it was. And I made my way over. He came out of the office to see me. He said, hello. I said, Mr. Rafferty, to see Dr. Shepherd. He says, I'm Dr. Shepherd. I thought this man was a drunkard. He looked very shabbily dressed, clothed. So he took me into his wee office. On the desk of the office was a big pile of papers. I noticed straight away my name was on top of it, and the Mother Hospital, and Dr. Joe Kidney's name was all on them. So if I put 2 and 2 together, that was the files from the Mother Hospital. And I told the doctor, I said, Doctor, I'm sent over here by my solicitor, Michael Hollywood of the Antidote, to have a full independent examination and an MRI scan. He just shook his head at me and said, no, you'll not be getting any of them. I can look at your file. I'll know what's wrong with you from these files. So he was going to look at me without even examining me, taking the word of another doctor. So I said no more, and I sat there for about 10, 15 minutes, watched him go through the files. He never spoke to me at all. I said, Doctor, this is a waste of time. Waste of my time and a waste of your time, by the way. You'll be getting paid about £500 to £600 to see me. I came over here with intentions. My solicitor told me an independent examination, a full examination and a scan, so that your conclusion and Dr. Joe Kidney's conclusion would strengthen my case. But apparently you're not even going to examine me. He said no. I said, end of story. This meeting is over. And I got up to walk out. And he said, the only 2 questions he asked me was, Mr. Rafferty, have you ever had any dealings with birds? Well, I know myself, anybody with birds, if they have a bad chest. I said, no, I never had pigeons in my life. And the other question he asked me, which I thought was diabolical, do you suck grapes?
Suck grapes?
Do you suck grapes? That's the exact words that man asked me, do you suck grapes? I looked at him, I was disgusted with him, for me sitting there now, almost 15, 20 minutes maybe. And there was a window behind him. And I said to myself, if I don't take myself out, he's going through that window. Because I was really disgusted. And I walked out and left him. And I phoned my Michael Hollywood the next morning, he's my solicitor from the Antrim Road. I said, Michael, you sent me over there on a wild goose chase. This fella didn't even examine me, done absolutely nothing to me, yet you are paying him money for that. 3 months later, I was to go to court. And another thing, the strange thing that happened between this court case, I got in contact with the Lord Chief Justice Sir Brian Kerr about my case because it was still on too long. It's almost 7 years. And all the people I've been speaking to in the shipyard were settled in 2 years. The Lord Chief Justice said to me, Arthur, you were there 10 court on 3 different occasions and you never appeared. And I said, excuse me, I was just talking face to face with the man, a gentleman.
Yeah.
I said, Your Honour, I was never informed at any time to appear in court. He said, you mean your solicitor never got in contact with me? I said, spot on. He said, well, now your next case, I said, I know of a case coming here on June the 13th, 2007. He said, yes. I said, well, I'll be there. And I was there, and that morning I raised early. I was eager to get into court to talk to these people. I sat on the outside of the court. The court wasn't, my case wasn't until 9:30. I got there at 9:15. Sitting there at 9 o'clock, Michael Hollywood with 2 barristers walked in. And when he seen me, the man, the blood drained from the man. And his first question he asked me was, what are you doing here? I couldn't understand. I said, what am I doing here? I said, the Lord Chief Justice told me my case has to be heard this morning. And it was to be heard 3 or 4 other times, and I was never told. Once I mentioned the Lord Chief Justice's name to him, he panicked. Another man standing beside him, came, a small lawyer with a wig on him, and black robes. He came and wanted to shake hands with me. He says, hello, my name is Charlie Hill. I'm your barrister. I said, I don't know you fella from Adam. I've been on this case for nearly 7 years, and this is the first time I've ever seen you, and you're saying you're my barrister. The other fella's name is Peter Dorn. And I was shouting that loud, because I'm not a soft talker. Everybody in the court heard me, and there was a couple of policemen. I thought they were going to come over and ask was there something wrong. And these 3, Michael Hollywood, Charlie Hill and Peter Dorn, they ushered me into a small office just off the courts. And they were talking to me there. He said, you know, Mr. Charlie Hill, you know, I'm an asbestos specialist, he says. I said, well, I thought by the closure of where you were a barrister, a lawyer. Are you a doctor as well? And it was all downhill after. He said to me, no, I'm here to tell you that you don't have asbestosis at all. The doctor in the Mara Hospital made a mistake. I says, and how do you know that? I said, where's the confidentiality act between me and my doctor? Surely I should have been the first to be told that. And I said, well, it doesn't matter who tells you that you have no case anyway and that we're here to tell you. I said, you're here to tell me. I said, that I didn't get a letter from my solicitor. I wouldn't have been here. How would I have known? And I looked at him and I looked at Michael Hollywood. If Michael Hollywood could get out without opening the door, he'd have through the wall. He turned a caliber corpse. And I was going to speak to him. I looked at him and said to say, what's happened here, guy? No, nothing. And Charlie Hill, I said, I'm going to tell you, something here smells corruption. He says, what do you mean by that? I said, do you want me to spell that out for you? I said, well, to tell you, I'm going into court now to see the judge, and I'm going to tell him there's collusion here somewhere. I can't put my finger on. I said, you, and you are sacked. I don't want you near me. And I walked straight out. And by that time, my name has been called to go into court. I went on straight into the court myself. It was a Judge Paddy Coughlin. He was doing the case. And I went straight up, and them 3 came after me, running after me like wee dogs. I was straight up to the judge. I said, excuse me, Your Honour. And I explained the whole case to him. He couldn't believe it. He looked at them 3 as if to say, is this man telling the truth? And he said to me, Arthur, well, all I can do is put your case in abeyance until you get a proper diagnosis. So I said, Your Honour, that'll do me fine. And them 3 was going to walk out again. And I said, excuse me, Your Honour, they're all my files these people have. And he called them back. And they came back like 3 wee sheepdogs. And he took the files off them and gave them to me. And I took them home. I took him home, out of court, after sacking him 3.
And you're still battling today, 2011?
2007, I went straight up to Joe Kidney, out of the Mother Hospital. I went straight to him. The only other time you can't see Joe Kidney, you have to make an appointment. I give him a title. The secretary took my message, she relayed it to him, straight up. And I spent 3 hours with him in the Mother Hospital. He said, Arthur, the report he got from Shepherd says I have no asbestosis at all. I said, well, Joe, can you tell me how this man can diagnose me without putting a hand on me? It's impossible, I said. So because of his report, Dr. Joe Kidney had a go along with them because they all work for the same trust. And I had to go to my Nigel Dawes, my MP, and from that time right up till 2009, that's 2 years, we had to fight them to be sent to England to see a specialist in England. And they paid my fare and all the world. I went over and seen the specialist in England. Within the space of about 2 years, I got diagnosed with asbestosis. This is one of the top men in England, Dr. Chris Warburton from Liverpool, 83 Hospital. And he says he can't understand how these people couldn't diagnose me, because all the symptoms were there. And working 27 odd years with asbestos, it's straightforward, he says.
You're determined to take it right to the end again?
Well, I'm up in court again very, very soon, and I'm bringing over Dr. Chris Warburton as my witness, and he's prepared to come over. So I'm looking forward to that case. Okay. And once I get that case over, I'm going straight back into court again, and I'm taking those 5 corrupt doctors to court, along with 3 corrupt barristers and 2 corrupt solicitors, to let the public know what's happening here.
There's also another individual that you want to...
Blog Talk Radio.
Thanks for tuning in to Arthur Rafferty Show, Fridays live at 8 p.m. GMT UK time and 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Have an issue with the asbestos or the Northern Ireland peace process? Troubles, email andyfreedomtalkradio.co.uk. Be our guest. Skype us, Freedom Talk Radio 1. Arthur Rafferty on the Freedom Talk Radio Network, where the truth must come out.
Yeah, thanks very much for that. For my good friend Mark and Freddie, the Horror Show on a Wednesday evening at 8 p.m. But they made this good video for all the shows. So well done to you guys. Tonight we're back with Arthur Rafferty. His show is 8 p.m. 7 p.m. tonight, but it's normally 8 p.m. London, 3 p.m. Eastern, and 12 noon Pacific. A little bit early tonight, but yeah, do email us, andy@freedomtalkradio.co.uk. We will be speaking 10-15 minutes regarding the asbestosis. So anybody from the NHS in Northern Ireland, please wait, because we want to discuss, because we can't ever forget this, about the investigation that failed into Arthur Rafferty Jr.'s dad. So welcome to the show, Arthur. Just to say hello, and then I just got 1 or 2 things to read, and then you can take it from there. So, welcome again. So your dad, from the BBC News on the 4th of December 14, Arthur Rafferty's murder, police ombudsman finds no evidence of collusion, it says. Well, obviously Arthur's going to talk about that again in a minute. The investigation obviously found no collusion. The police did fail on certain aspects, which included destruction of a rifle used in the attack and loss of the suspect's interview notes. Now, that alone, let me read that again because maybe I'm going daft. The police ombudsman officer said in this attack in 1974 in Newton Street in the August, where he was shot, Arthur Rafferty Sr., it says, the failings of the police, the RUC, the Royal Officer of Constabulary, said that these failures were the destruction of a rifle used in the attack and the loss of suspects' interview notes. Well, how the hell can that not be collusion unless I'm going mental? It was obviously conveniently lost, and of course there's no proof that there was collusion in that respect. But how convenient that was, though, to lose that. And then they did hold the suspect as well, and of course nothing was ever done about that. The IRA in the end did admit the killing from one of their people. Yourself, Arthur, you think it was Scapitici, and it's very interesting, and then I'll let you talk, that Kieran Conway, which is a book author, and he did an article called Southside Provincial, as in the Provincial IRA, Southside Provincial. I'd got him wrong. I thought he'd put into his book that he knew about your dad's murderer, and who did it, i.e. Scapitici. I got that wrong. I misread the article. But, he was a very senior it was a very senior person involved in raising money for the IRA. It was questioned about the Birmingham and the pub bombings and the other bombings. And I'm not being funny to you, sir. You're a very distinguished barrister now, and you do good on that side of the world. But how the hell can you not, as an IRA senior member, not know who shot Arthur Rafferty in Newington Street in them days? I mean, and we offer our big hearts and a big email and a big telephone numbers that we've given you to come across to us and speak off air or on air. It doesn't really matter. Kim Conway, it's up to you, pal. It's your conscience, and being a true Irishman from Dublin, you know what that means. Anyway, Arthur Rafferty, Senior, your turn, my friend.
Andy, thank you very, very, very much. And as you say, if this chap wants to speak to me about my father, by all means, because I have spoke to all classes of people about his murder over this past 44 years. I know who murdered my father, and I was able to tell the police that, the RUC, the Ombudsman, the HCT. I had meetings with them time and time again, and I give them the names of not only Scapitici, but also the other 4 people who were with him, because it took 5 of them to take my father out. And Brendan Hughes was able to tell me word for word what happened exactly that night, and who shot my father, where he was shot, and how these people, after they shot him and left him lying in Newington Street bleeding to death, hopped into a taxi and went down to the New Lord's Road, to the Felons Club, to have a drink, and probably to praise themselves for a good night's work. And it took me long enough to find out who, but Brendan was able to, he phoned me, I went up to his flat, and we spent 2 long meetings, and he gave me everything that happened to my father and the names of the people that murdered my father. And the Ombudsman knew the very next day, the police knew, but of course the police always knew, because after all, Scapitici worked for them, he was their informer. So there's nothing that he done that they didn't know about.
And now I think you can. Sorry.
Yeah. As I'm saying, Andy, if this Dublin fellow wants to speak to me, by all means. But he knows no more than I know. But if he knows any more, I'd like to find out.
Yeah, no, that would be good. And like I commented, maybe that sounded a bit negative, but I didn't mean to come across that way. But being a senior IRA person that's now written a book and now turned good, being a barrister, he must have at the time known a little bit more, because Scapitici murdered between, this is estimate from the internet, it states in one article 57 people to 97 57 of them the Ombudsman did an investigation on, and guess what? Most of these investigations, and I don't know who these people are, but the Ombudsman said there was no collusion, no this and no that. But so why has Bedfordshire, Chief Constable leaves in July still, why did he open inquiry against Capitici into all these murders if the guy never murdered anyone? And the bit that puzzles me, Arthur, and you can carry on after this, is if they think Capitici's killed, let's call it 20 people out of all them numbers, and they've got proof on that and he'll go to jail, why is the one murder so important? Arthur Rafferty, worker, your dad, why is that so important to be kept covered up? That bit I don't get, you know. I can understand if all the murders are covered up, but if you get sentenced for whatever, you know, how many murders he's actually done, or will they find him not guilty of any murders? And why are the police protecting him today? And if you want to mention what you told me earlier about certain relatives of Mrs. Capitici, please do so. If not, then we'll just leave it at that.
Yes, Andy, as I'm saying, the police are known that Capitici was played their jewel in the crown. He was the chief nothing officer in Sinn Féin ARA, and Sinn Féin ARA knew everything that he was doing. And I know for a fact he shot at least 25 of his own members because he convicted them of being touts. Like, he had a cheek to talk about anybody when he was a chief tout. But he had the right to take them men, married men with children, and shoot them in the back of the head. And Sinn Féin ARA knew all about that, the police knew all about that, and they done nothing. So how in the name of God can you call them a police force?
Yeah, well, it's not personal, I don't think, to Northern Ireland. The police in our country are definitely corrupt. But, yeah, I mean, our police forces in the UK, Scotland, and not so much in Scotland, but Wales and England, they came more corrupt after the peace process. Sorry, forget the peace process. After the Northern Ireland peace problems, where there was murders every day and bombings around the country, the police then after that in our country, this area, became more corrupt. And it must be linked because, you know, it's politics and religion. It must be linked.
Well, only what this fella has done to me, he's put me through 44 years of pure hell. And I was told by other people that he was going to make his entrance into Belfast again, about 6 months back, or less. And the police were there to pick him up from the airport, to drive him where he was going in a black limousine with dark windows, up to a chapel on the Falls Road to bury his father. And I was told just too late. And when I got up, the time I got up and had arrangements made, he was just in the taxi, in his black car again, and the police ushered him out and took him back to the airport. So how in the name of God can those police justify that? That man is a mass murderer, and he's killed innocent men, women and children, and they're chauffeuring him about as if he's something special. That's what annoys me, Andy. And every time I've asked the police that question, they've avoided it. They won't speak to me.
I'm not on anybody's side, and you know that. I'm just trying to look at it from a neutral point of view. I do know, you know, this is what makes me laugh. I was just laughing a little there. I know people have their human rights, you know, so they do have a right to protection from intimidation or people want to kill them, you know, and they do have a right to see their family buried in safety and comfort. But then I look at it a different way. Why can't you have that peace of mind and that human right to see justice for your dad? It works two ways, doesn't it?
It does only, and the death my father got. They took him out of a pub. They marched him around in Newton Street. Scapatisi came out with another ARA man armed with a hand pistol. My father seen them, knew something was up, like normally, and tried to run down the street. And they ran after him, and they were practically on top of him when Scapatisi opened up. 12 rounds he fired on.
Did your dad?
7 of them missed him, and 5 of them cut my father practically in 2. And that man must have suffered.
I was going to say, did your dad ever, I think I've asked you before, but I can't remember. Did you ever have conversations with your dad in hospital? Did he ever think who it was or why it happened? Because remember you told me in one of the reports it says it was a mistaken identity.
Well, the police on Mon's report have said, it quite possibly was a mistaken identity because they have checked all the facts about anybody being abused, any child being abused, and there's no such report. And I myself take 6 months off my work to go around the hospitals in Northern Ireland, the clinics, and not one report. So therefore, but of course, when you look at the record of Sinn Féin ARA, when they shoot people, they love saying that the man was a paedophile or the son was a paedophile or whatever, just to make, they're not content with shooting a person. They want to blacken his name and his family. But they made the mistake with my father. They thought I was like the rest of the people, but keep my mouth closed. I've done the work, and I would do it again. I found out who it was, what it was, and that was one of the lies. And the person that runs that organization has the audacity to call anybody a pervert when he looks at his own family. That's what annoys me. And I've told the police that. But there again, they're never going to do anything because this fella is untouchable. They've given him his name, he's untouchable, and that he would never stand trial for any one of his murders. And that, in a civilized country, can't be right. And the human rights people here in Northern Ireland are standing here doing nothing because they're run by the British government. And they're told what to do and what not to do. And I've been down at them dozens of times to tell them my story. They know it off by heart, but they do nothing.
No, absolutely. And what I was thinking when you was talking about that, and then I came across some Scapatici stuff that's breaking news in the last 2 hours. I've still got that there. Now, what was I thinking? Yeah, they probably won't do nothing. It is very complicated, isn't it?
If you know as much as I know about Scapatici, I've lived his life now for 44 years. The police and the military here, the MPs here, if you want to call them that, can't touch him because he is untouchable. The British government give him amnesty for all of his murders.
Well, anyway, the breaking news, I forgot my train of thought on that one. It's the 9th of May, 2019. That was yesterday then. I don't know why it's only just appeared on the internet today, just now, when I Googled his name. State now, Freddie Scapatici faces more than 30 lawsuits. I'll read it out. Yeah. A West Belfast man who denies being Britain's former top spy, or he still denies it, inside the IRA is now facing more than 30 potential lawsuits. The High Court, yesterday obviously now, has learned. Writs have been issued, private lawsuits have been issued against Freddie Scapatici, 72, in at least 24 separate related cases. Legal action has also been threatened by a further 7 individuals over alleged kidnappings and interrogations and mistaken identity. The scale of litigation was revealed as police thought as in S, to protect material produced by a major probe into the agent codenamed Snake Knife. Bedfordshire Police Chief Constable John Butcher, who is heading the Operation Kenneth investigation, says he believes he has uncovered evidence of criminal wrongdoing by both IRA security force members and Fred Scapitici. A judge was told he now intends to submit a report from consideration on potential prosecutions either by the end of the year, 2019, or early 2020. Just trying to find if there's anything else. He was the grandson of an Italian immigrant, and he is, yeah, the rest is a bit rubbish. But Justice Horner was told application for these proceedings are now closed. So I'll read it. It says ring-fenced. Mr. Justice Horner was told applications for closed material proceedings, so-called secret court hearings, is being considered for some of the cases due to the issues of national security. We have, somebody was talking about that today. We have secret courts for children being adopted or stolen by the state. We have secret courts or secret employment tribunals, you know, when you have an employment issue. Everything seems to be secret. And now Scapitici, if you want to sue him, it has to be done in secret. Due to national security? Bollocks. I'm sorry, half of the swearing, and I don't normally, but the new figure emerged as counsel for the police set out the case for ensuring Operation Canova's working papers are ring-fenced from disclosure in the civil claims. I know you don't kind of know what that means at the moment, but I'll send it to you.
Yeah. Andy, I know this fella, John Butcher. I've had at least a half a dozen meetings with him and his team. The man, I don't want to call him any name, but Scapitici will never stand trial for any of his crimes. He has been giving that assurance by the British government on the RUC PSNI. And if he was to go into court and swear and tell the truth about these people, well, the RUC right away will have to be disbanded. And the top people in politics in Britain will have to leave the country. And John Butcher, no harm to the fella. He's only doing his job. He's only an ordinary policeman he's taking the British government on. And he's a British man himself. So you don't have to be Einstein to work that one out. That's just to pacify the public. They'll take them cases to the court behind closed doors. The judge will be there just to sit on board, and that's it. End of story. The same as the case over in England 4 or 5 weeks back. They took him in the back door. Bang, bang, bang. Out you go. The police take him out the back door. This fella has lifted the lid. I said he's someone special. And he knows that. He has the British government backing him. And no harm to John Butcher. I take his words with a small pinch of salt.
Yeah, no, I've just realised that what's going on then, unless you get your claim in already to sue the guy, yes. I mean, you won't get no money out of him anyway, but there's all these private prosecutions going on. It's going to be held in secret courts like it normally is due to national security, and they're hoping that the criminal investigation, does something. But do you know what they do, what you're supposed to do in law? And I'm not no legal, but I've heard it on most shows now from most experts. You have to solve a criminal case or an inquiry before you let anybody go into a civil lawsuit. So again, the civil prosecution procedures are being, they're lying to us. If somebody's suspected of criminal activity, I'll put it a different way, there has to be an investigation. There has to be an inquiry. The inquiry has to be finished. Then you can sue that person if no criminal charges. If anything else happens differently, which it now is, reported in Belfast Telegraph and the BBC in the UK, then it's corruption to the highest level. And that you can actually now call John Bolger assistant lies, because he probably is.
And on another thing, this the only people who's going to make money out of this is the court services, and the lawyers, and the solicitors, and then it has to be put to that organisation called the PPF to make their mind up whether he is going to stand trial or not. And the PPS is run here by the Chief Constable. So you can put two and two together on it. This is only a whitewash.
Yeah,
and pacify the people, to keep them quiet, to say that John Butcher is doing something for his money, because after all, the taxpayer is paying them people big money.
Yeah, it's it's the same over here. It's a public prosecution service, basically, in a nutshell. Right, okay, then let's move on, because we've got 5 minutes of live, and then we've got 15 minutes of non-live. We've actually
Andy, excuse me, Andy, as that Dublin lawyer wants to speak to me, I speak to him. Or if he wants to speak to me in private, by all means, you have my number there. My number's on my site anyway.
Yeah, YouTube channel.
Yeah, and I'd be glad to speak to him.
No problem,
because
sir.
If he doesn't know who Morris Capatici, the game's wrong. Because Brendan Hughes was one of the top men, and he knew every move he made. So there.
Okay,
Read about that.
Yes, at this point, we're going to, because I labelled the show Arthur Rafferty's NHS Belfast Trust misdiagnosis of asbestosis, and in this story, each week we're going to name another doctor. It's Dr. Wendy Anderson's turn. Now we're going to do it properly in one show in the future. We're going to do every doctor in one go, but you know, misdiagnosis. Now she now is the actual medical director in the Northern Trust. She's actually the cancer specialist and lung specialist of Northern Ireland. I think she's been promoted somehow, Dr. Wendy Anderson. Now, I've been I don't know a lot about medical, but I've been reading stuff, and I did have an appointment with my wife's GP today, and I told him, quickly what was going on in your case about the misdiagnosis and all that. And do you believe about the thing that we were told by somebody that we shouldn't name at the moment? Yeah, and they said, no, that's totally wrong. And I said, well, okay, then what about this particular doctor who said no? Apparently, he said, it's off the record, and you've not told me who the person is, because I didn't. He said, if two doctors in the service have said that you have asbestosis, then even a professor of it, you just can't change the diagnosis once it's been done twice. So that cause two experts are saying yes, two experts are saying no, or less of an expert is saying no. One of them is, and one is an expert. You have two doctors saying yes. Basically, the rules are you just cannot. It's bad for the NHS. It's bad for doctors worldwide. If two people, it's a bit like, in fact, he said it's a bit like mental health. My wife's got mental health, so that's why he said that. He said, if two doctors say your wife's got mental health, and two doctors said she doesn't, then she's got mental health, because you have to believe the professional. And it's the same in your case, Arthur. You definitely have asbestosis. Yeah.
Of course it is. That's what I'm saying. Dr. Joe Kidney diagnosed me 6.5 years ago, and I was attending his hospital. No trouble. Then all of a sudden, Dr. Tony Stevens, he comes on the scene and sends me to see that doctor in the city. And he never left his chair. He was reading Joe Kidney's reports, and from them reports, he phoned Tony Stevens and says, Mr. Rafferty does not have asbestosis. So how in the name of God can that happen?
One thing I didn't ask earlier on, because in all cases that I try and deal with, I try and get evidence. Do you have any evidence of them saying that you don't have, asbestosis?
Well, I have evidence here now for the person that you spoke of there, Dr. Anderson,
Okay.
from Dr. Tony Stevens. I'll just read it to you, Andy, if you want.
Yeah, go on.
Mr. Rafferty, Dr. Anderson has now provided her report. I understand that, in her opinion, you have not developed asbestosis. This should be a great reassurance to you and confirms the earlier advice you received from Dr. Joe Kidney. Dr. Anderson recognizes that you do still have respiratory symptoms, which has been and has offered you a review appointment and the opportunity to undergo further investigations under her care. You now have a chance as to whether you transfer yourself to her care and possible further treatment to Dr. Anderson at Antrim Area Hospital, or continue to receive care and treatment within the Belfast Trust. I would be grateful if you could advise both ourselves and Dr. Anderson as soon as possible as to where you wish to continue being seen. There is some urgency in this case, as Dr. Anderson has offered a review appointment within the next couple of weeks. I appreciate your patience in dealing with the diagnostic uncertainties you have experienced. I hope the progress that has been made will ease your mind, and Dr. Anderson's professional input will provide you with increased confidence in the care you receive. If we can be of any further assistance at this time, please feel free to contact Dr. Joe Kidney, Mrs. Mickey Vincent, or myself.
Wow.
And this is coming from a doctor that says, I didn't have it.
Yeah, I don't think I've got that copy. I need to look at that one. But anyway, listen.
I'll get a copy of it too.
I've got it doesn't matter who I got this from, but I've got this letter. It's on a new website which will tell you soon. In fact, we'll tell you now. It's nhsmedical.co.uk. That's nhsmedical.co.uk. It's a new website for highlighting cases of misdiagnosis within the National Health Service. NHS Medical is actually Northern Highland Society. That I'm in the North Highland of Scotland, NHS Medical, and that's why we've called it that. We've not called it that for no other reason. You know, this letter says it is my view. Obviously, he's not jumping up and down in his letter, this gentleman, but it's his view. You know, and you have to say that you believe him, view, opinion, that this gentleman, Arthur Rafferty, does actually have pulmonary fibrosis. I'll talk about that in a second. His asbestos exposure, certainly sounds to have been sufficient to have contributed to the causation of his pulmonary fibrosis. It is my opinion, therefore, that this gentleman actually does have asbestosis. On auscultation, I can't say that, of his chest, probably, you know, they've done x-rays and all that. There were bilateral crepitations, which were both coarse and fine in character. This gentleman does have also bronchitis and possible bronchitis with mucus hypertension, hypersecretion. I mean, because he was a doctor and the dust exposure. But in plain language, you're bringing up a lot of mucus and phlegm. You've got problems with your lung lining. It's hard to breathe. It was caused by asbestosis. And pulmonary fibrosis, if anybody never knew what that actually was, and that may be the key here. You may not actually think, some people think because of the diagnosis, you've actually not got asbestosis, but the pulmonary fibrosis itself from the NHS says it's very rare that a standard person would live more than 5 years. You would live to a little bit longer should you have been looking after yourself, and you're very lucky. Arthur Rafferty, you've been living a lot longer than that. So, but pulmonary fibrosis is the stage before the last stage, which is that word I can't remember, and you get cancer and you die. Yeah, and you die within a year. So, wow. How did you manage to fight all that?
But only well knows me, this fellow, Dr. Tony Stevens, and Wendy Anderson. He said to me, he then referred me to Wendy Anderson, who, onto Mayo Hospital, who I was led to believe was an asbestos specialist. This doctor was then able to diagnose me not with having asbestosis, no pleural plaques, no bronchiectasis, all by sounding my chest for no more than 20 seconds and asking me if I worked at the Belfast Docks unloading asbestos. From this sounding, she came to the conclusion that I, in fact, have suffered from small lungs, a brain abnormality due to the fact that I was a professional boxer. The medical report she conveyed to me was diabolical, and this woman came to the conclusion that she was sitting at her desk. She got up and tested my chest for 20 seconds and sit back and just went back to her chair. That's diabolical.
Well, also, people, I've got the evidence that, we haven't got it pre-18 years before, but in the last 18 years, Arthur's been diagnosed with asbestosis. He's been diagnosed with osteoarthritis, asthma, ruptured long head, biceps, tendon bilateral in both arms, diffuse pulmonary fibrosis, bronchial, that thing I can't pronounce. I couldn't pronounce scapitici before, but now that's easy. And he's been diagnosed in 2009, and this is what's so funny about the whole thing. So let's go back. 2001, diagnosed at the Mater Hospital of asbestosis, and 2009, diagnosed for a second time with asbestosis. It actually makes you laugh, doesn't it, what they're doing? And all Belfast NHS Trusts have to do is agree, basically, to tell the truth. I'm sure Arthur's not in this for money, although it helps a little. But Arthur's out for truth and justice. And this is why the first part of the show was about his poor dad. There is corruption and collusion going on everywhere in the world, but in particular it seems to be systematic in Northern Ireland, which is a shame, because the politicians, they did well by having an agreement with the Good Friday Agreement, but look what's happening now. Nobody's talking, Parliament's not sit for a long time. There are some good MPs out there, which I don't need to mention on the show, but hopefully the one in particular that we're writing to will help Arthur again like he did before.
But Andy, if they come in there for this person to say small lungs, I was a professional boxer. I had 25 fights as a pro. And before every fight, the doctor gives you a thorough checking. And where the small lungs come from is beyond me, because I worked for 30 years at that dock, working hard work. And anybody, I've never heard of a person having small lungs before. And a brain abnormality. Where did that come from?
Well,
it's insane. If you told me, I wrote a letter to Dr. Tony Stevens about that. It's only a short one. Is it okay to read it?
No, carry on. We've got 8 minutes.
Dr. Stevens, in response to your letter of the 16th to 9/08, Will you explain to me how Dr. Anderson came up with her diagnosis without even giving me an examination? All she did was sound my chest, and by doing that she said, no asbestosis, no pleural plaques, no lung disease, no bronchiectasis. All this all comes from a 2-minute sound of my chest. As bronchiectasis, I have a scan from the Mother Hospital showing that I do suffer from bronchiectasis in 2007. I suppose that scan is telling lies too. As for the report from Dr. Anderson, she did not need 2 opinions to give her result. Let me reassure you that her report is a complete whitewash, and I cannot believe that a doctor would be allowed to do that. I am writing to the GMC about her. As for your urgency to make an appointment, I have already seen Dr. Kisney, and I will not be going to see both Dr. Kisney or Dr. Anderson again. And I pity people going to the Antrim Area Hospital if she's still a doctor. Yours faithfully, Arthur Rafferty.
She's now been promoted to a medical director for the region. Now, I've been quickly Googling, can boxing cause small brain or brain damage? Yeah, yes, obviously it probably can, but you would have memory loss, you would have headaches, you would have maybe bleeding on the brain if it's severe. You would even develop Parkinson's a lot earlier than normal. You're 79 years of age, 80 in December, and you know what? You're the most... everything you've told me from today, even 5 years ago, maybe 3 years ago, when I first heard about you and first talked to you, you say the same thing today as you did then. And if you've got a memory problem because of boxing, then it would have shown by now. And you haven't got it in your medical notes from what I see, but this is a whole reason for getting all your medical notes from the hospital. But more importantly, you know, we said earlier on, get your medical records from birth from your GP, because that will show if any of the hospitals of, you know, even before this has happened, there may be a record somewhere where a doctor is saying, oh, Arthur's experiencing this trouble, he might have a small brain or a brain injury or whatever. And then what's happened is, over the years, they're then now using this as an excuse for, you know, misdiagnosing you. So you need all these records, and once you've got them, we can go and party, because I don't think for 1 minute that what they say is true. And I asked them, you know, not so much to come on a show, because, you know, we don't want to bring them down that way, but why don't they make a statement proper about your case, all of them, every single doctor in this case, make a statement between them and talk to you and me or anybody else that wants to witness the conversation, so, you know, in person, in their buildings, so you can come to the bottom of this. Now, the last 4 minutes, we're going to talk about a person unnamed, and she said, or he said, can't remember now, you can't get diagnosed with asbestos unless you're dead. Do you want to highlight on that? But don't name this person at this minute.
Yes, only. I was speaking to a person during the week. I'll not mention her name, but she works in the Belfast Trust. She said that doctors find it hard to diagnose people with asbestosis. The only way you can tell if a person has asbestosis is when they die, and doctors look into it then. So therefore, doctors cannot diagnose a person with asbestosis if they're still alive. You have to die before they can make a proper examination of you. And this came right from one of the top people.
Well, you could say the horse's mouth.
No, the horse's mouth. Another thing, only just as I may, I have a letter here from the doctor who diagnosed me with asbestosis, Dr. Werberson. It is in my view that this gentleman does actually have pleural pulmonary fibrosis. His asbestosis exposure certainly sounds to have been sufficient for me to diagnose him with asbestosis. In my opinion, therefore, this gentleman actually does have asbestosis. This gentleman does have also bronchiectasis and possibly bronchitis with mucus hypertension from his long-standing dust exposure while working for 30 years as a doctor at the Belfast Docks. That's one thing that these doctors here wouldn't know about, how to tell the truth.
I think I read that one out myself. Let's sort of, we've got 1.5 minutes. We can highlight that we have a union representative from Scotland. We won't name him at the moment. He will come on the show in the next couple of weeks or month or so. He will highlight the problem in Scotland is, what's the word? It's at such a level, being misdiagnosed or not being diagnosed at all, or people are losing people with no compensation without any rights. They're doing rallies in June. They're doing in Glasgow in June. So Google asbestosis and the Clydesdale Action Group for Asbestos. Google that because they're doing a rally in June. They've done one in Aberdeen recently. This gentleman is from a union, Unite the Union, and he's coming on. We're going to team together, and we're going to get to the bottom of this, whether it kills us or not. Final comments for you, Arthur?
Yes, that's what I'm saying. Thank you very much for helping me to expose these people, but there's hundreds and hundreds of other people like me worked at the Belfast Docks. Half of them now are dead, and half of them were diagnosed with some with asbestosis and others with not having asbestosis. And that's cruel, because these men worked along with me. But there's nobody now to fight for them, even our union. When you went to our union to express that to them, for our union to stand up